What's up, guys? Okay, so we are talking about the 240 again today, and she's on a trailer, and that's not great. You might notice we got some fluids down here in the trailer, and we got fluid splattered all over everything. So I took her out last night and did some racing on the streets of Mexico here locally with my buddy Mike. He's got a wicked turbo LS swapped 300ZX, really fast car. So we took our cars out to the local Mexico and did some 60 to 130 timed drag runs with the draggy yesterday, and good news is it went really well. Made quite a few passes in my car. Started out on the first pass, I ran a 7.0 60 to 130, which is not too great, but I was only running 14 psi, so we turned the boost up and ended up at 18 psi with a 6.39, which is pretty respectable time, not bad at all. But I was mostly just happy that adding 4 pounds of boost shaved off 0.6 of a second. That's a really good sign. That means the car is actually working well, and that the tune is pretty good because it's picking up significantly with boost, so that's a definite good sign. We tried to run even more than 18 psi, but it just wasn't making any more. So I may need more spring in the wastegate to fix that. I would like to be running a maximum of probably around 25 psi if the turbo can do it. Not really sure if it can, but I would like to be sub 6 seconds on a 60 to 130 test. I'd like to be like probably about a 5.8 or 5. Ideally, obviously faster the better, but a 5.8 or so is probably what she'll run. Kind of maxed out on this turbo, I'm guessing. So on the way home, I was driving home and everything was fine, and I went to make one last rip on an on-ramp, and all of a sudden fluid all over the windshield, steam going everywhere, like plumes of steam everywhere. And I had a flashback to being at the drag strip earlier this year when I lifted ahead and blew coolant all over the windshield, steam going everywhere, and I thought, oh crap, I've lifted ahead again. And so I pulled over as quick as I could and hopped out, turned my flashlight on my phone and looked all over, and it turns out it was not coolant, thankfully, but it was transmission fluid. So on the side of the road last night, I'm looking down here with traffic, semis whizzing by my head, and I looked way down in here and I noticed that my trans cooler lines are laying against my manifold, and I didn't realize they were, obviously, or I wouldn't have done that, but I think one of them burned through, and just burned through just enough to allow a stream of really hot trans fluid to hit the manifolds and just steam everywhere. And so anyway, had to round up the wife to come get me. Had to wait by the side of the road for over an hour for her to get to where I was, pick me up, take me home so I could get my truck and trailer, hook it up late last night, drive back out to where the car was sitting by itself on the side of the road, which always makes me nervous to leave my car somewhere. And get it loaded up and get it home. So here we are. We're gonna fix a trans cooler line, I think, and hopefully it's just an easy fix and we'll be back at it again. Alright, so let me show you what happened here. If you can see down in the hole here, I've got my transmission cooler feed going to the cooler, and then the return back to the transmission here. And if you look right here, right above where my thumb is, you can see right there in that wrinkly spot, it kind of looks dried out. It's actually burned and charred. So just that section right there laid against my, actually against my Y pipe, just long enough to burn through and make a little pinhole, and then all that transmission fluid pressure started blasting through that little pinhole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this burn section out and put a splicer in between them with a couple of worm gear clamps, and hopefully that will hold and be the fix that I need. And then I will zip tie everything out away from the hot parts better than it was, so that we don't have to go through this again. So let's get her done. Alright, let's see what we got that we can make a splice out of. So where I keep all of my fittings, or most of them, some of them, most of them. Let's see what I got here. Now, I'm not sure what size those lines are for a trans cooler, but I'm thinking they're probably like about a 3/8. And Ah, this would be nice, but I don't think that's 3/8. It's like quarter. Same. Probably not a good idea to go down in size if I can help it. This looks like a transcooler fitting or something. Probably came in a transcooler kit. It looks about like a transcooler line. I don't know, I need to do some research on transcooler lines and see what the internal diameter needs to be. But if this is a transcooler line fitting, and this is how big transcooler lines probably need to be, if that's the case, that's nearly about the same diameter as this on the inside, I think. I could just use the brass one. No, it's a little smaller, isn't it? I don't know, maybe I'll measure them and see. I could cut this, take that off, then I'd have a bead roll on one side but no bead roll on the other side. That would not be ideal, but might work. That ain't gonna work. Well, I'm not seeing anything that looks absolutely perfect for the job. Here's something. Bead roll on one side, some interior size, not a lot, no bead roll on the other side. I could jam that in there and clamp it, it might work, but it's a little small. Now this is probably the size, interior size that I really need, but it's a Y. So I probably need this, but bigger interior size, I'm willing to bet. But let's go cut that line and see how this fits in it, see if it fits super loose or tight or what we got going on. Okay, so I got it cut open there. I got the bad piece cut out, and sure enough it was split on the inside, so that is our problem. And I got my good candidates here and my Y just for measurement purposes, so let's see what fits and what doesn't. Okay, so that guy's too loose, like I was afraid. It's not a good tight fit, which means all these are probably going to be too loose. I mean, that guy fits, but pretty easy to drag out of there. And then this guy is not even really made for this, of course, but it is flared, so maybe I could jam it in there and make it work. Probably not with one hand. Alright, so I got it in there easily, but I don't know, that's going to leak if you ask me. And this is the bigger diameter. Of course it's a Y, so I can't actually use it for this job, but it's for test fit purposes. Let's see how she does. Yeah, that's a decent fit. It doesn't want to go in. It takes a little bit of effort to get it in there. Not a ton of effort though. Kind of wish it was a little tighter than that, to be honest. But that's probably a good size. I may have to run to the hardware store and see if I can find this but in a straight splice instead of a Y. Dropped it. Okay, we'll go from there. Okay, so I decided to go back to my scrap bin and take a look at some scrap tubing and lines that I have laying around. I don't know if you guys keep lots of old scrap parts around, but I keep boxes of my old factory pieces laying around just for times when I might need to make something on the fly. And I found this, which is a power steering loop from a 240SX, so it's just tubing is all it is. And it seems like it's got similar diameter to this fitting, if not exactly the same. Pretty good size interior diameter there, internal diameter, whatever. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut a straight section out of this guy, probably that one right there. I'll just cut it here and like here, cut a nice long straight section so that I can fit, if not one, maybe even two band clamps, worm gear clamps on each side, and just use that straight as a splice. I think it'll work, so I'm going to grab the hacksaw and cut a chunk out of there. Okay, yeah, I think that's probably going to work out okay. I'm going to deburr it, clean it up, and I think that's going to work. Okay, I think that's going to do it. Got most all the coating and the grease and stuff off of it and cleaned out the inside. I think it's long enough that I can get 2 clamps on each side if I have 2 clamps. Honestly, I think 1 clamp will probably do the job. But I know that some racetracks, the requirements to pass tech and all that is you're supposed to have 2 clamps anytime you have to have a clamp. So I'll see what I got, but definitely at least 1 per side. That should do the trick. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. I've got the splice pushed down in here pretty far, about 1 inch, 1.5 inches, and I was able to get one of my clamps around it. It's super tight, but I was able to get around it. So now I just need to insert that into the other end and get a clamp on it before I do that, and then clamp both sides down, test it out, and I think we'll be back on the road. Okay boys, there we go. Got it spliced, double clamped, and zip tied back to the brake lines there. And then once I get it cleaned and get all the oil off of it, I'm going to take some reflective foil tape and put a couple layers right here just so any radiant heat coming off the flange here doesn't bake it over time. And yeah, that should be a job well done. Should be good to go for a long time. Alright, got her all power washed up. Got all that transmission fluid off there that I can see, or that I can tell. Everything's looking bright white again. As bright white as it can be anyway. The blacks are black and the whites are white. What more can you ask for, right? And it looks like my fix is holding so far. Just driving it up here, no leaks. So I'm going to call that a win. Car's looking good. Nice. Hey, thanks for watching today, guys, as I took you along with me on the journey of doing a pretty basic little repair there in the shop on the Turbo LS 240. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making that video, and I'm super happy to have the car back on the road with such a simple fix after what I thought might have been a major failure. So super happy to have the car back on the road. If you enjoyed this video and if you like that project back there, subscribe to the channel. I'll be making a lot more videos on that. And hit the like button and leave a comment below if you have any questions, and I'll see you on the next one.